I'm Daniel, a 38-year-old architect, married to Clara for 12 years. We live in a sleek Chicago loft, our life a canvas of shared dreams. Her photography career, my designs, our Sunday brunches at Navy Pier. Clara's laughter, sharp and bright, used to fill our home. Lately, though, it's been dim, like a bulb flickering before it burns out. I noticed the change 6 months ago. Her late-night phone calls, the way she'd angle her screen away, her sudden client meetings that stretched past midnight. I trusted her. Love blinds you that way. Our loft, once warm with her black and white prints, felt sterile now. She'd stopped hanging new photos, her camera gathering dust. I'd ask, "Everything okay, love?" She'd smile, kiss my cheek, and say, "Just busy." But her eyes darted, like a deer sensing a hunter. I chalked it up to stress. Clara was ambitious, her gallery shows packed with Chicago's elite. I was proud, not suspicious. Yet, the air between us thickened, a fog I couldn't name. One evening, I found her scarf, crimson, her favorite, on the floor, tangled with a man's leather glove. Not mine. I held it, the leather cold, unfamiliar. "Clara?" I called. She emerged from the bathroom, her face pale. "Oh, a client dropped it," she said, snatching it away. Her voice was too quick, her hands trembling. I nodded, but my chest tightened. That glove wasn't a client's. It was a crack in our foundation, one I couldn't unsee. I started noticing patterns. Her phone buzzed at odd hours, messages she'd delete before I could glimpse. She'd leave for shoots with no equipment, returning smelling of cedar and smoke, not her usual jasmine. I wasn't a jealous man, but doubt gnawed at me. Who was she meeting? Why the secrecy? I loved her too much to confront her outright. Instead, I watched, cataloging every shift in her behavior, every lie that slipped through her lips. By month 7, I was a man obsessed. I'd lie awake, her sleeping form beside me, wondering who she became when I wasn't looking. The Clara I knew, fierce, loyal mine, was slipping away. Or maybe she'd never been mine. The thought was a blade, twisting deeper each night. I needed proof, not just suspicions. So, I did something I swore I'd never do. I followed her. It was a Tuesday, rain slicking the streets. She left, claiming a gallery meeting. I trailed her, my heart pounding, into a world I didn't recognize. Clara's car wound through Chicago's South Loop, far from any gallery. I followed in my Audi, keeping distance, the rain blurring her taillights. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. This wasn't me. Spying, doubting, but love makes you a stranger to yourself. She parked outside a loft building, not unlike ours, but grittier, its windows glowing amber. I watched her slip inside, no camera bag, just that crimson scarf trailing like a warning. I waited, the rain drumming my windshield. An hour passed. 2. My mind spun scenarios. A friend, a collaborator, a harmless meeting. But the glove, the lies, the cedar scent, they screamed otherwise. Then, a figure joined her at a window. Tall, broad-shouldered, his silhouette sharp against the light. They stood close, too close, her hand on his arm. My stomach churned. I wanted to storm in, demand answers, but I needed certainty. I needed to see the betrayal, not just feel it. I parked and approached the building, my shoes soaking in puddles. The lobby was unlocked, a stroke of luck. I climbed to the 3rd floor, where light spilled from a cracked door. Voices murmured, hers soft and laughing, and his low, intimate. I peered through the gap. Clara sat on a couch, her legs tucked under her, facing a man I recognized. Ethan, her old mentor from art school. He was 45, silver streaking his hair, his presence commanding. They weren't working. No cameras, no art. Just wine glasses, her hand brushing his knee, his fingers tracing her wrist. My breath caught. This wasn't a fling. It was a ritual, practiced, familiar. How long had this been happening? Months? Years? Ethan leaned in, whispering something that made her laugh, her head tilting back, exposing her throat. I wanted to scream, to shatter their moment, but I froze. The man I was trusting steady crumbled. In his place stood someone new, someone who understood vengeance. I slipped away, back to my car, the rain masking my shaking hands. Clara had built a secret life, one where I was a ghost. Ethan, with his smug confidence, was her partner in it. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was a performance, a deliberate erasure of me. I drove home, plotting. I wouldn't confront her yet. I'd gather evidence, build a case, and when the time came, I'd make them both pay. Not with fists or shouts, but with something sharper, something that would cut deeper than their lies. The next weeks were a descent into obsession. I became a detective in my own marriage, every moment a chance to uncover Clara's deception. I installed a tracking app on her phone while she slept, its icon hidden in a folder she'd never check. It mapped her movements. Galleries, cafes, and, 3 times a week, Ethan's loft. I cross-referenced her texts, snippets I glimpsed before she deleted them, with her locations. "Meet me at 8, she'd write. "Missed you," he'd reply. Each message was a splinter under my skin. I dug into Ethan's life. He was no mere mentor. A renowned photographer, his work hung in MoMA. His name whispered in Chicago's art circles. Divorced, no kids, he lived alone in that loft. A space I now knew intimately from public records and late-night drives past its windows. I found his social media, sparse but telling. Photos of Clara at his exhibits, her tagged as Muse. Muse, the word burned. She wasn't just cheating. She was rewriting our story, casting me as the fool. I kept my routine normal, kissing her goodbye each morning, asking about her day. She'd lie effortlessly, her eyes meeting mine, her voice steady. "Tough shoot," she'd say, or "gallery drama." I'd nod, my smile a mask. Inside, I was building a dossier. Screenshots, timestamps, even a burner phone to record her calls when she thought I was asleep. One night, I caught her whispering, "Daniel suspects nothing." Ethan's laugh crackled through the line. "Good. Keep it that way." The cruelty of THIR dismissal fueled me. I wasn't just gathering evidence. I was crafting a trap. I studied revenge, not the loud kind, but the quiet, surgical sort. I read about public shaming, financial ruin, reputational collapse. Ethan's career was his life. Clara's identity was her art. I target both, but not yet. I needed more, something undeniable, something that would make their betrayal a spectacle. I started testing Clara, leaving openings for her to confess. "You seem distant," I'd say, watching her face. "Just tired," she'd reply, her fingers twitching. I left the leather glove on her dresser once, saying nothing. She froze, then tucked it away, claiming it was hers. The lies piled up, each one a brick in the wall between us. I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was her judge, her executioner. The love I'd felt was ash, replaced by a cold, relentless purpose. They'd built their world on my trust. I'd tear it down, piece by piece, and they'd never see it coming. Clara's betrayal wasn't just about stolen moments with Ethan. It was something stranger, more insidious. I discovered it by accident, tailing her to a private gallery event in River North. She told me it was a networking thing, but the tracker showed her at an unmarked warehouse. I slipped in, blending with the crowd, Chicago's art elite, all champagne flutes and pretension. Clara was there, radiant in a black dress, but not as a guest. She and Ethan were performing, not a traditional affair, but a staged intimacy, a living artwork. They sat on a platform, surrounded by spectators, their hands intertwined, their gazes locked. Ethan read poetry, Clara's poetry, words I'd never heard, while she painted his face with gold leaf, her fingers lingering. The crowd murmured, calling it transcendent. I saw it for what it was, a public mockery of our marriage, her vows turned into performance art. Each touch, each whispered word, was a blade, and I was the invisible wound. I stood at the back, my pulse roaring. This wasn't a private betrayal. It was a spectacle, their connection flaunted under the guise of art. The crowd didn't know I was her husband, but Ethan did. His eyes flicked to me once, a smirk tugging his lips. He knew I was there, and he reveled in it. Clara, lost in their act, didn't notice. I left before the applause, my mind racing. This was their secret. Not just an affair, but a shared creation that erased me, made me irrelevant. I dug deeper. Their performances were a series, held monthly, each more intimate. Flyers called them soul mirrors, a study in connection. Reviews praised their chemistry, their raw vulnerability. I found recordings online, Clara's voice trembling as she spoke of love, Ethan's hands on her shoulders. They'd built a myth around themselves, and I was the collateral damage. Fans speculated about their relationship, but Clara never mentioned me. In their world, I didn't exist. The betrayal cut deeper because it was so deliberate, so celebrated. She wasn't just choosing Ethan. She was choosing this life, this art, over me. I wasn't enough. Not her muse, not her partner. I spent nights replaying their performances, memorizing every gesture, every lie. My revenge took shape. I'd expose their fraud, not as lovers, but as artists. I'd turn their stage into a guillotine, and the crowd they loved would wield the blade. But first, I needed to understand the full scope of their deception, to ensure their fall was absolute. I stopped sleeping. My days were a blur of work and my nights a descent into planning. Clara's performances with Ethan weren't just art. They were a business. They'd secured grants, sold tickets, even planned a European tour. Their Soul Mirrors was a brand, built on the lie of their singular connection. I wasn't just betrayed. I was erased from her narrative, a footnote in her rise. My love for her, once a foundation, was now fuel for something darker. I began dismantling their world quietly. First, I infiltrated their audience. Using a pseudonym, I joined their online fanbase, posting praise to gain trust. I learned their schedules, their sponsors, their weaknesses. Ethan was arrogant, dismissive of critics. Clara was paranoid about her reputation. Perfect. I'd exploit both. I contacted their grant funders anonymously, planting doubts about the authenticity of their work. Is it art or a publicity stunt? I wrote, attaching clips of their most intimate moments, framed as manipulative. Next, I turned to their art itself. Clara's poetry, read during performances, was personal, raw, too personal. I recognized lines she'd written for me years ago, now repurposed for Ethan. She'd stolen our history, twisted it into their myth. I collected evidence, old journals, emails, anything proving those words were mine. I'd reveal her plagiarism, not to her, but to the world, at the perfect moment. Ethan's role was trickier. His reputation was ironclad, but every man has cracks. I hired a private investigator, discreet, to dig into his past. Tax evasion, a hushed-up scandal, something would surface. Clara sensed nothing. She'd come home, radiant from her shows, and I'd play the doting husband, cooking her favorite risotto, asking about her night. It was magical, she'd say, her eyes distant. I'd smile, imagining her face when her world collapsed. I wasn't cruel by nature, but betrayal reshapes you. I wanted her to feel what I felt. The slow bleed of trust, the weight of irrelevance. My plan grew intricate. I'd stage a counter-performance, a public unveiling of their lies, timed for their biggest show, a gala at the Art Institute, 6 weeks away. I'd use their own tools, art, truth, spectacle. I'd project their stolen words, their staged intimacy, alongside proof of their deception. The crowd would turn, their sponsors would flee, and their soul mirrors would shatter. But I needed one final piece. Undeniable proof of their personal betrayal, something to seal their ruin. I was close, and the anticipation was a fire in my veins. My private investigator, a wiry man named Vince with a knack for discretion, delivered the first blow to Ethan's armor. Over coffee in a dive bar near Wicker Park, he slid a folder across the table. Inside were records of Ethan's financial dealings, shady, but not illegal. He'd funneled gallery profits through offshore accounts, dodging taxes on Soul Mirror's earnings. More damning was a 2010 incident. Ethan had been accused of forging a client's signature on a contract, settled out of court. It was a crack in his pristine reputation, one I could widen. The real prize, though, was personal. Vince had trailed Ethan to a Lakeview apartment, not his loft. There, he met a woman, not Clara, but a curator named Lila, married, influential in Chicago's art scene. Photos showed them close, her hand on his chest, their silhouettes merging in a window. Ethan wasn't just betraying me through Clara. He was juggling multiple lives, each a performance. This was leverage, a way to turn his allies against him. Lila's husband, a lawyer with clout, wouldn't take kindly to being a fool. I studied Clara's movements via the tracker. Her visits to Ethan's loft were clockwork, but she'd added new stops. A studio in Pilsen, rented under her name. I broke in one night, the lock flimsy. Inside, I found canvases, portraits of Ethan, his face gilded, her signature scrawled. But there were others. Photos of me, old ones, defaced with paint, my eyes blackened. She wasn't just erasing me. She was rewriting me as the villain in her art. The betrayal stung anew, its cruelty sharper than any touch she shared with Ethan. I kept my routine airtight, cooking Clara dinner, asking about her projects. She'd ramble about galleries, unaware I knew every lie. Her crimson scarf, now a symbol of her deceit, hung on our coat rack. I'd brush it daily, imagining it as a noose. My plan for the Art Institute gala solidified. I'd hijack their performance, projecting evidence of their fraud, Ethan's finances, Clara's stolen poetry, Lila's affair. The art world would devour them, their myth shattered. Vince warned me, "This could ruin you too, Daniel. She's your wife." I didn't care. Love was gone. Only justice remained. I spent nights designing the projection, syncing it to their show's climax. I'd rented equipment, secured a tech to execute it anonymously. The gala was 4 weeks away. I needed one final piece. Proof of Clara and Ethan's personal intimacy, something to make their public fall visceral. I was close, and the anticipation was a pulse in my veins. I began baiting Clara, subtle tests to unravel her. One night, I left a gallery flyer on our counter, one advertising soul mirrors. "This looks interesting," I said, watching her. She froze, then laughed, too shrill. "Oh, just some avant-garde thing. Not my style." Her lie was clumsy, her hands fidgeting. I nodded, feigning disinterest, but inside, I tallied her deception. Each slip was a thread I'd pull at the gala, unraveling her before her adoring crowd. Ethan was harder to crack. I sent anonymous emails to his sponsors, hinting at financial irregularities. I didn't expect them to act yet, just to plant doubt. One replied, asking for proof. I held off, saving it for the gala's spectacle. Meanwhile, I tracked Lila's movements, confirming her rendezvous with Ethan via Vince's photos. I drafted a letter to her husband, and signed, detailing Ethan's betrayal with dates and addresses. I'd mail it the day before the gala, ensuring chaos in Ethan's world as his art crumbled. Clara's behavior shifted. She grew jumpy, checking her phone obsessively, locking it with a new code. I cracked it in a day, her birthday predictable. Her texts to Ethan were guarded but telling. He's asking questions. Ethan's reply, "Stay calm. He's clueless." Clueless. The word burned, but it fueled me. I screenshot everything, adding to my dossier. I also found emails about their European tour, funded by a grant I'd soon discredit. Their ambition was their weakness. I'd make it their downfall. I visited the Art Institute, posing as a donor to scout the gala's venue. The auditorium was perfect. High ceilings, a massive screen for their performance. My tech, a hacker named Riley, assured me we could override their visuals remotely. I'd project Clara's defaced photos of me, her stolen poetry, Ethan's tax records, and Lila's affair, all timed to their final bow. The crowd would gasp, then turn, their applause souring to whispers. I imagined Clara's face, Ethan's smugness collapsing, and felt a cold thrill. At home, Clara grew distant, her touches mechanical. I mirrored her, keeping my anger buried. "You okay, love?" I'd ask, my voice warm. She'd nod, avoiding my eyes. I wondered if she sensed the storm coming. She didn't. She was too deep in her world with Ethan, their art blinding her to the man she'd betrayed. 3 weeks until the gala. I was ready, my trap coiled, waiting to spring. Their love, their art, their lives. I'd burn it all, and they'd watch it turn to ash. A week later, an unexpected ally emerged. At a coffee shop, I ran into Maya, a former colleague of Clara's from her early gallery days. She'd always been blunt, distrustful of Ethan's charm. Over lattes, she sensed my tension. "You look haunted, Daniel," she said. I hesitated, then spilled a fraction of the truth. Clara's secrecy, the performances. Maya's eyes narrowed. "Ethan's a parasite. He used me too, stole my concepts, passed them off as his. Clara's not his first muse. Maya's grudge was my opportunity. She'd left the art scene but still had contacts. Curators, critics, insiders. She offered to dig, no questions asked. "I owe Clara nothing," she said, "and Ethan deserves to fall." Within days, she delivered. A 2015 contract where Ethan had claimed sole credit for a joint project with Maya, costing her a grant. It was another shard to sharpen my blade. Maya also knew Lila's husband, Paul. "He's territorial," she warned. "Show him Ethan's betrayal, and he'll torch him." I shared my plan's outline, not the gala, but the goal. Expose Ethan and Clara's fraud. Maya suggested a twist. Leak their performance footage to a rival gallery, framing it as derivative. "The art world hates copycats," she said. I liked it but held off. My projection would be louder, more final. Still, Maya's network was gold. She promised to whisper doubts to sponsors, softening the ground for my strike. "Just don't lose yourself, Daniel," she said. I was already lost, but I smiled. Clara's performances grew bolder. I watched one online, streamed to a private fan group. She and Ethan danced now, their bodies close, her hands tracing his face. The crowd called it sacred. I saw theft. My life, my love, repackaged for applause. I saved the video, its intimacy my ammunition. At home, Clara was a ghost, barely speaking. I cooked alone, her plate untouched. "Busy week," she'd say, slipping to bed. I'd nod, my mind on the gala, now 2 weeks away. Maya's intel deepened my resolve. She found a critic willing to question soul mirrors publicly post-gala. I didn't need him yet. My projection would spark the fire. But allies were stacking, and Ethan's world was fraying. Vince reported Lila and Ethan fighting. Paul had received my letter early. A misstep. Ethan was rattled, canceling a shoot. Good. Let him squirm. Clara, oblivious, texted him, "We're untouchable." I read it, my jaw tight. Untouchable? I'd touch every corner of their lives, and they'd feel the burn. The gala loomed, 10 days away. I needed the final piece. Undeniable proof of Clara and Ethan's personal intimacy. Something to make their betrayal human, not just artistic. Vince came through. He'd bugged Ethan's loft, unethical, but I was past ethics. The audio was grainy but clear. Clara's voice, soft, saying, "You're my home, Ethan. Daniel's just there." Ethan's reply, "He's a prop. We're the real story." They laughed, their voices entwined, then silence. Too long, too telling. My hands shook as I saved the file. That audio was my ace. I'd play it at the gala, looped with their performance footage, Clara's defaced photos of me, and Ethan's financial dirt. The crowd wouldn't just see their fraud. They'd hear their cruelty, their dismissal of me. I refined the projection, testing it on a rented screen. Riley, my tech, was a genius. She'd hacked the auditorium system seamlessly. "This'll go viral," she said, grinning. I didn't want viral, I wanted ruin. Clara grew reckless. She left her phone unlocked once, revealing a new email. A Paris gallery confirming their tour. "Soul Mirrors, a love story," it read. Love story. My stomach twisted. I forwarded it to my burner account, adding it to my arsenal. I also found a draft of her poetry, More stolen lines from our past. "You're my horizon," she'd written to me in 2010. Now it was Ethan's. I scanned our old letters, proving her theft. The art world revered originality. I'd expose her as a fraud. Ethan's world was cracking. Maya's whispers had reached sponsors. One pulled funding, citing concerns. Paul, Lila's husband, confronted Ethan publicly at a gallery, his voice loud enough to spark rumors. Ethan's charm faltered. He snapped at a critic online, drawing scrutiny. Clara, caught in his orbit, didn't notice. She was high on their myth, texting Ethan, "We're unstoppable." I read it, my resolve steel. They weren't unstoppable. They were glass and I was the hammer. I rehearsed my role at the gala. I'd attend as a guest, my face calm, while Riley executed the projection. I'd watch Clara and Ethan take the stage, their hands linked, then see their world collapse as the screen lit up with truth. I imagined Clara's gasp, Ethan's panic, the crowd's shift from awe to disgust. The anticipation was electric, a current in my blood. 1 week left. I was ready to rewrite their story, to make them the footnote in mine. The gala was tomorrow. I moved like a ghost, every action precise. I met Riley at a warehouse, testing the projection one last time. The screen blazed. Clara's stolen poetry, Ethan's tax records, their audio mocking me, her defaced photos of me, Lila's affair. It was a symphony of ruin, timed to their performance's peak. Riley nodded. "It's perfect. They're done." I paid her double, ensuring silence. She didn't care about my motives, only the job. At home, Clara was radiant, packing for the gala. "Big night," she said, kissing my cheek. Her touch was cold. A stranger's. "You're coming, right?" I nodded, my smile practiced. "Wouldn't miss it." She didn't see the storm in my eyes. I watched her choose a dress. Emerald, like the one she wore when we met. The irony burned. That Clara was gone, replaced by this performer, this liar. I let her chatter, her excitement a blade in my chest. I finalized details. Maya would attend, spreading whispers among critics. Vince would monitor Ethan's reaction, feeding me real-time updates. Paul, Lila's husband, was a wild card. His anger could disrupt things, but I didn't care. Chaos served me. I mailed a final anonymous tip to a gossip blog, hinting at Soul Mirror's scandals. It had hit post-gala, amplifying their fall. My dossier was complete, backed up on a secure drive. No mistakes. Clara left early, claiming setup duties. I knew she was meeting Ethan. The tracker confirmed it, his loft, then the Art Institute. I didn't follow. I needed distance, clarity. I walked our loft, touching her scarf, her camera, relics of a life I'd trusted. Love was ash, but vengeance was alive, pulsing. I dressed for the gala, black suit, no tie, a man unmoored. My reflection was calm, but my hands trembled, ready to pull the trigger. I drove to the Art Institute, the city's lights blurring. The gala was hours away, but I felt it. Clara and Ethan's world, fragile, waiting for my hand to shatter it. They'd built their myth on my pain, their art a lie. Tomorrow, I'd strip them bare, not with shouts, but with truth, cold and sharp. The crowd would turn, their careers would crumble, and I'd walk away, the husband they dismissed, now their judge. The reckoning was here and I was its architect. The Art Institute glowed, its stone lions sentinel under Chicago's night sky. Inside, the gala buzzed. Art patrons, critics, sponsors, their chatter a hum of wealth and ego. I entered, my black suit blending with the crowd, my face a mask of calm. Clara and Ethan's Soul Mirrors was the night's centerpiece. Their stage set in the auditorium, a screen looming behind. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. Tonight, I'd rewrite their story. I spotted Clara across the room, her emerald dress catching the light, her laughter sharp as she mingled. Ethan stood beside her, his hand grazing her back, their ease a performance in itself. They didn't see me, didn't sense the storm I carried. Maya was there, working the crowd, her whispers already stirring doubts among critics. Vince texted, Ethan's jumpy. Paul's here, fuming. Good. Chaos was my ally. Riley, my tech, was in position, ready to hijack the screen. I sipped champagne, nodding at acquaintances, playing the proud husband. A curator asked about Clara's work. She's brilliant, I said, my smile tight. Inside, I counted minutes. The auditorium doors opened, and the crowd funneled in. I took a seat near the back, my burner phone buzzing with Riley's update. Systems hours. Say the word. I waited, watching Clara and Ethan take the stage. Their hands linked, their faces radiant. The crowd hushed, enthralled. My trap was set. Their performance began. Poetry, movement, gold leaf on Ethan's face. Clara's voice trembling with love. I recognized my words, stolen, twisted. The screen showed their past shows, a montage of intimacy. The crowd leaned forward, captivated. I texted Riley, now. The screen flickered and their montage froze. Gasps rippled as my projection launched. Clara's defaced photos of me, her poetry beside my original letters, Ethan's tax records, Lila's affair photos. The audio played, Clara's voice. Daniel's just there. Ethan's laugh. A prop. The crowd shifted, murmurs growing. Clara froze, her brush dropping. Ethan's eyes darted, searching for control. I stood, unnoticed, watching their myth crack. My revenge wasn't loud. It was surgical, truth its blade. The screen looped, each image a cut. Sponsors whispered. Critics typed furiously. Paul, Lila's husband, stood, his glare fixed on Ethan. The gala was no longer theirs. It was mine. Clara's face crumpled, her eyes scanning the crowd, finding me. Our gazes locked, and I saw her realize. I wasn't the clueless husband. I was her undoing. Ethan grabbed a microphone, stammering, technical error, but the crowd wasn't his anymore. My projection rolled on, relentless, bank statements, forged contracts, Clara's emails planning their tour, all branded with soul mirrors. A fraud. The audio looped, their laughter mocking me, now mocking them. Paul stormed the stage, his voice booming. You used my wife, Ethan? The crowd gasped, phones recording. Ethan backed away, his charm gone. Clara tried to speak, but her voice broke, drowned by murmurs. Maya's allies, critics, curators, stood, questioning loudly. Is this true? Stolen work. Sponsors slipped out, their faces grim. I watched, my pulse steady, as their world unraveled. This wasn't just shame. It was erasure. I left the auditorium, letting the chaos swell. Outside, I checked my phone. The gossip blog had posted my tip, amplified by live tweets from the gala. Soul Mirrors was trending, not for art, but for scandal. Riley texted, clean exit. Equipment's gone. I paid her to vanish. Vince reported Ethan arguing with security, Clara sobbing in a corner. I felt no pity, only a cold satisfaction. They'd built their stage on my pain. Now it was their pyre. I drove home, the city's lights blurring. Our loft was empty, Clara's scarf on the floor. I didn't touch it. My revenge wasn't done. I'd mailed evidence to their European partners, ensuring their tour collapsed. Maya had leaked the forged contract to a rival gallery, branding Ethan a thief. Paul's lawyers were circling, Lila's affair now public. Clara's reputation, her art, was ash. I'd stripped them bare, their lies exposed to the world they craved. I poured whiskey, my hands still. The man I'd been trusting, loving, was gone. In his place was someone new, someone who understood power. Clara and Ethan thought me a prop, but I'd rewritten their ending. The gala was just the start. Their lives would unravel, thread by thread, and I'd watch, the architect of their ruin. Tomorrow, Clara would come home. I'd be ready, my final act waiting. Clara returned at dawn, her dress wrinkled, her eyes red. She dropped her bag, staring at me like I was a stranger. I sat at our kitchen table, coffee cold, her scarf in my hands. Daniel, she whispered. How could you? Her voice broke, but I felt nothing. She'd played the victim on stage. She wouldn't hear. How could I? I said, my tone ice. You erased me, Clara. You and Ethan turned our life into your art. She sank into a chair, hands trembling. It wasn't like that. It was expression, not betrayal. I laughed, sharp and hollow. Expression? You painted my face black, stole my words, laughed while Ethan called me a prop. I slid my phone across, showing screenshots, her texts, the defaced photos, their audio. She flinched, her lies laid bare. You followed me, she said, not a question. You lied first, I replied. She tried to explain. Ethan was her muse, their art a higher truth. I cut her off. You mocked our vows for applause. You chose him, Clara, over me, over us. Tears fell, but they didn't move me. I'd cried alone for months, my pain invisible. Now hers was public, her career in ruins. The gala, she choked. You destroyed us. I leaned in, my voice low. You destroyed us. I just showed the world. I stood, tossing her scarf at her feet. You have nothing left. No tour, no grants, no reputation. Ethan's done too. His sponsor's gone, his secret's out. She sobbed, but I saw her mind racing, searching for a way to salvage. There was none. I've been thorough. Why so cruel? She asked. I paused, meeting her eyes. Because you were. Every performance, every lie was a choice. I chose to answer. I walked to the door, my bag packed. I'm leaving, Clara. The loft's yours. For now. Good luck rebuilding. She called my name, but I didn't turn. My revenge was complete. Not just in the gala spectacle, but in this moment. Her alone, her world ash, my truth the final word. I stepped into the dawn, the city waking, my heart a quiet ruin. I'd won, but victory tasted like dust. Weeks passed. The art world churned, soul mirrors, now a cautionary tale. Blogs dissected Clara and Ethan's fraud. Critics called their work derivative. Sponsors sued for refunds. Ethan's loft was for sale, his reputation toxic. Paul's lawyers buried him in litigation over Lila's affair. Clara's gallery dropped her canvases unsold. I followed it all from a distance, renting a studio in Logan Square, my life stripped to essentials. Maya kept me updated. She'd thrived, her own art gaining traction as Ethan's fell. You did it, Daniel, she said over drinks. They're ghosts now. I nodded, but ghosts haunted me too. Clara's face at the gala, Ethan's panic. They replayed in my dreams, not as triumph, but as weight. I'd ruined them, but my anger hadn't faded. It lived in me, a tenant I couldn't evict. Clara tried to reach me once. A letter slipped under my door. I'm sorry, she wrote. I lost myself in him, in the art. I never meant to hurt you. I burned it, her words too late. Sorry didn't undo months of lies, of public mockery. I heard she'd left Chicago, crashing with a cousin in Ohio. Her camera sold to pay debts. Ethan surfaced in New York, trying to rebuild, but his name was poison. My trap had been thorough, its jaws still tight. I returned to work, my designs sharper, darker. Clients noticed, praising my edge. I didn't tell them it came from betrayal, from wielding truth like a blade. Friends asked about Clara. I said we'd parted, no details. The man I'd been open, trusting, was buried. I didn't miss him, but I missed the clarity of vengeance. It had given me purpose. Now I drifted, my victory a hollow throne. I kept one memento, a photo of Clara and me, pre-Ethan, laughing at Navy Pier. I didn't look at it, but I couldn't throw it away. It was proof I'd loved, proof I'd been fooled. The art world moved on, new stars rising. I watched, detached, my role in its drama invisible. I'd been the storm, and now I was the silence after. A year later, I stood at the Art Institute, not for a gala, but a quiet exhibit. My life was steady, new projects, new routines, but the past lingered, a shadow I couldn't outrun. I'd won, but at a cost. Clara and Ethan were gone, their names synonymous with scandal, their art forgotten. I'd exposed their lies, turned their stage into a guillotine, but victory hadn't healed me. It had carved me hollow. I heard rumors. Clara in a small town, teaching photography, her spark dim. Ethan scraping by in Europe, his arrogance humbled. Paul had divorced Lila, his rage spent. Maya thrived, her gallery shows packed. She'd thanked me, but her eyes held pity. You're free now, she'd said. Free, yes, but tethered to memories. Of Clara's laugh, her betrayal, my revenge. Freedom wasn't peace. I walked the exhibit, pausing at a photo. A man, faceless, painted over. It wasn't Clara's, but it could have been. I'd been that man, erased, then reborn as something harder. My revenge was cruel, yes, but theirs was crueler, deliberate, public, a theft of my trust. I didn't regret the gala, the projection, the ruin. I regretted loving her, believing in her. That was my wound, and it didn't scar. I left the museum, Chicago's wind sharp. My studio waited, my designs piling up. I'd rebuilt, but not whole. The photo of us stayed in a drawer, untouched. I didn't need it to remember. Clara and Ethan had underestimated me, thought me a prop. I'd shown them I was the author, their story mine to end. But stories don't end cleanly. Mine stretched on, a man shaped by loss, by vengeance, by truth. I stopped at Navy Pier, the lake vast and cold. I wasn't the husband anymore, nor the avenger. I was Daniel, alone, my heart a quiet forge. The world turned, indifferent. I turned with it, carrying my price, my truth, my silence. The betrayal was theirs, the revenge mine, and the cost ours to share, forever.